In 2021, a retired electrician in Arizona named David Whitfield did everything right. He spent 14 months researching solar. He got 3 quotes. He read the fine print. He paid $9,800 for a 10 kilowatt-hour home battery, the most trusted brand on the market, installed by a certified contractor, backed by a 10-year warranty. 4 years later, his battery holds 61% of its original capacity. The manufacturer's app shows a health warning. The warranty, he discovered, only covers complete failure, not degradation, not the slow death they built into the firmware before he ever plugged it in. David is not alone. He is the business model. To understand what David actually bought, you need to know what is inside that sleek white box bolted to his garage wall. Lithium iron phosphate cells. Cylindrical, the size of an AA battery, but fatter. Manufactured almost entirely in 3 factories in Shenzhen and Ningbo, China, the same factories that supply the cells inside electric vehicles, power tools, and laptops worldwide. The cells themselves are a commodity. You can buy them wholesale. In 2023, the spot price for LiFePO4 cells on the open market was $97 per kilowatt hour of capacity. David paid $980 per kilowatt hour. That is a 10 times markup on a commodity product before a single piece of software was written or a single support call was answered. The cells David paid $9,800 for cost the manufacturer under $970 to source. Every other component, the battery management system, the inverter, the enclosure, the communications board, adds perhaps another $400 in material cost at scale. The product that costs $1,370 to build retails for $9,800. That is not a premium. That is not a brand tax. That is a captive market. Here is how the captive market was built. In 2015, a single product launch changed the home energy storage industry permanently. A company in California unveiled a wall-mounted battery with a clean industrial design, a famous CEO on stage, and a price point that immediately defined what home storage was supposed to cost. The media covered it like a consumer electronics release. The waiting list stretched to 18 months. Competitors rushed to match the price, not beat it. What nobody reported was the internal cost structure. A Bloomberg New Energy Finance analysis published 2 years later found that battery pack costs at the utility scale had already fallen to $273 per kilowatt hour by 2016 and were falling 20% per year. Residential systems, which use similar chemistry, were being sold at 4 to 6 times that cost. The explanation the industry gives is integration, software, and support. The explanation the numbers give is something simpler. There was no competition on price because the market was new, the brand was trusted, and the buyer had no reference point. David had no idea what his cells were worth. Neither did almost anyone else. The markup is the first layer of the scam. The second layer is engineered into the product before it ships. Battery cells, when treated correctly, are remarkably durable. The LiFePO4 chemistry that dominates the home storage market has a published cycle life of 3,000 to 6,000 full charge-discharge cycles. At 1 cycle per day, the standard assumption for a solar plus storage home, that is 8 to 16 years of operation before meaningful degradation. But the products shipping to homes like David's are not rated for 6,000 cycles. They are rated for 3,500 or 4,000 at 80% depth of discharge. With a warranty that defines end of life as 70% capacity retention after 10 years. The cells can do more. The firmware will not allow it. Researchers at MIT's Electrochemical Energy Laboratory published findings in 2022 on the gap between cell level and system level performance in residential batteries. They found that battery management system settings in 3 major residential products were configured conservatively enough to reduce usable cycle life by 25 to 40% compared to what the underlying chemistry could support. The cells were not wearing out, they were being held back. When the warranty expires and the homeowner calls for service, the conversation goes one of two ways. Either the battery needs a new BMS module, a $600 part that takes 20 minutes to swap, or the entire unit needs replacement. The manufacturer does not sell the BMS separately. They sell a new battery, the printer cartridge model applied to your solar system. The home battery, which sits stationary in a temperature-controlled garage and never moves, costs you $700 to $1,000 per kilowatt hour. The same chemistry, the same cells, 5 to 7 times the price per unit of energy stored. The reason is not engineering complexity. The reason is that the EV market has 20 competing manufacturers and a consumer who can compare window stickers at a dealership. The home battery market has 4 major players, pricing that is rarely discussed publicly, and a customer who is told by their solar installer what to buy, an installer who earns a margin on the hardware they specify. The solar installer is not your advisor. They are a distribution channel. The archive opens not in a Silicon Valley product launch, but in a warehouse in Belgium in 1919. The Phoebus cartel, General Electric, Philips, Osram, and several smaller manufacturers met to solve what they called the problem of the long-lasting light bulb. Their engineers had already built bulbs that lasted 2,500 hours. The cartel's solution was to impose a technical standard limiting bulb life to 1,000 hours, and to fine any member company whose products exceeded it. Documents from the cartel's technical committee, recovered decades later by historian Helmut Schroeter, showed systematic engineering in reverse. Not innovation to improve the product, engineering to degrade it. The cartel called it standardization. Historians call it the first documented case of planned obsolescence in industrial manufacturing. The home battery industry does not have a formal cartel. It does not need one. When 4 companies control the majority of a market and none of them compete on price, the outcome is the same. Here is what they will not put in the product brochure: a do-it-yourself LIF EP04 battery system. Built from the same grade of cells used in residential product, costs between $180 and $240 per kilowatt hour installed. That includes cells sourced from reputable manufacturers, a quality battery management system, an enclosure, and a compatible inverter. A 10 kilowatt hour DIY system costs $1,800 to $2,400. David paid $9,800 for the same storage capacity. The performance is identical. In some cases better. A DIY builder selects the BMS settings themselves and can configure the system to use the full cycle capacity the cells are designed for. YouTube channels documenting DIY battery builds have accumulated tens of millions of views. The off-grid community figured this out years ago. The mainstream solar industry has not mentioned it once. Because the mainstream solar industry makes $600 per kilowatt hour, selling you the alternative. And this is the part that should make you angry. The federal investment tax credit for home battery storage, your tax dollars, applies to the purchase price of the system. If you buy a $9,800 battery, you receive a 30% federal credit, $2,940 back. If you build a $2,400 DIY system, you receive $720 back. The subsidy scales with the markup. The more a manufacturer charges above material cost, the larger the federal subsidy the buyer receives, and the larger the effective government transfer to the manufacturer's margin. The incentive was designed to accelerate adoption of clean energy storage. What it actually does is subsidize a price structure that would collapse overnight if buyers knew what the cells inside their $10,000 box actually cost. The technology works. Nobody disputes that. A well-built lithium iron phosphate system, sized correctly, can cover 80 to 100% of a home's overnight electricity needs from solar generation alone. Grid independence is real. The physics is settled. The question is not whether home battery storage is worth having. The question is why the entry price has been kept at a level that puts it out of reach for most households, while the actual cost of the components has fallen by 89% in the last decade. Battery cell prices in 2013, $780 per kilowatt hour. Battery cell prices in 2023, $97 per kilowatt hour. Retail home battery prices in 2013, roughly $1,000 per kilowatt hour. Retail home battery prices in 2023, $700 to $1,000 per kilowatt hour. The cells got 89% cheaper. The product got 10% cheaper. Someone kept the difference. David Whitfield is rebuilding his system. He found a supplier. He ordered cells. He watched 40 hours of video from builders who documented every step. His replacement system will store 15 kilowatt hours, 50% more capacity than his original, and will cost him $2,100 in parts. He is 68 years old, and he is doing it himself because the industry that was supposed to help him get off the grid was too busy keeping him on it. The sun is still free. The physics still works. The cells cost $97 a kilowatt hour. Someone decided you should pay $980. This is Off-Grid Secrets. Subscribe. The next archive opens soon. Next episode, the Trombe Wall, patented in 1881, proven to cut heating costs by 30 to 84%. American building codes treated as a thermal defect. We are opening that archive.